evening, everyone. I am so glad to be here tonight. My name is Tia Taylor, and I am, of course, with the Choice Zone. But more importantly, tonight, I am representing Michigan Coalition for Human Rights. I am the co-chair, along with Chantel Yancey. She is not here tonight. She will be on, I know, soon in some of the other podcasts that we're doing monthly. And just wanted to come before you because it's so important that we talk about reimagining human rights and really looking at what are we standing for today? What are we imagining today? And just for those who don't know, if you don't know, Michigan Coalition for Human Rights promotes awareness of, commitment to, and advocacy for human rights and the environmental rights of planet Earth through education, community organization, and action. MCHR opposes forces that suppress human dignity, freedom, and justice locally and around the world. And if that's what you stand for, then by all means, do not hesitate in looking up mchr.org. Come and visit our website, become a member, let us know what you're doing in the community. And what we're about is a lot of collaboration. We do things individually, but not ever alone. We may sponsor different events, and of course, we are all activists, all of us. And sometimes when people serve on a board or a coalition, you don't always know what they actually do besides that particular board or coalition. So I have guests tonight who are indeed, they are members of Michigan Coalition for Human Rights. And so excited to have them here tonight. Alexanderia Hughes and Trische Duckworth. Let's welcome them this evening.
Hello.
Hello, hello. I'm so excited to
Hello.
have you guys on tonight. Woo woo. Um, so tonight we're talking about reimagining mental health. But before we even start that, I need to tell the audience that these women, these ladies right here, are so phenomenal. They are dynamic, but more than that, they are the truth. So when you need something done, and if you don't have a voice, and if you need an advocate, and if it's about social justice, you need to holler at Alexandria Hughes or Trische T. Duckworth. I'm telling you, to meet them and to serve with them is a wonderful experience. And to know that, look, when you're out here, it's not easy and it doesn't always go your way. And they are always in the trenches. So no further ado, I'm gonna have Trische, if you go ahead and let the people know a little bit about you. She doesn't always talk about herself, but I need you to do it tonight. I need you to do that. I'll add in some stuff too.
Well, good evening, everybody. I find it an honor to be here with you all, uplifting a very important conversation. However, this conversation is very meaningful because it's with two women that I esteem very highly and respect in all that they do. So I can't wait for you to hear the introductions into my sisters a little further. But my name is Trische Duckworth. I'm the executive director of Survivor Speak. I'm a lead consultant of Value Black Lives. I'm just somebody that loves her people. And wherever her people are, I'm pulling up, right? Wherever the need is, that's where we are, right? Because for us, it's not about whether we know you or not. We know you. We're all related. We're all siblings in one form or fashion. And I think that's the issue when it comes to human rights. We don't see ourselves as siblings of many different hues that should be fighting together for the harms that happen to either one of us. So I'm honored to be here with you all. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Trische. And Alexandria Hughes. Oh my goodness, activist, MSc, MSU student
Yes,
research. Let's get it, get it.
yes. I'm Alexandria Hughes. I am a community activist, also a researcher at Wayne State University, digital creator, as well as a student working on my master's program for my master's degree in social work. I am a firm believer that a woman's body is not a group discussion. Also, someone who believes that justice and equality is something everybody should have. And by serving those, by fighting for justice for those most impacted, we benefit all. And a lot of political activists prior to me have done that and shown that through policy that we still use today. Thank you so much for having me. Oh, also member of MCHR, also board member with Detroit Justice Center. I'm glad to be here and talking about this important topic.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. So I've got questions, y'all. I've got some questions. And I'm looking at, when you talk about mental health, you talk about um mindful futures, right? It's like, are we really looking at the future? How are we going to be sustainable as people, right? Reimagining mental health for a sustainable tomorrow. Um, and so we're considering not only individual well-being, but also environmental, social, systemic factors essential for long-term sustainability. I mean, are we really, and these are some of the questions I ask every day, are we really looking at being sustainable individually and then as a community? And so we want to target today mental health professionals, educators, community leaders, policymakers, social justice advocates, and individuals interested in sustainable and holistic mental health approaches. And so when we look at this, um, talk about focusing on a perspective, your perspective, your experience, specific solutions. When you talk about reimagining mental health, what comes to mind? And any one of you can take that lead on the question. What comes to mind when you talk about reimagining mental health?
Yeah. So for me, what comes to mind is getting away from the Western traditions of mental health and making mental health more about being culturally inclusive and understanding, and doing what's needed per the person experiencing a mental health crisis or mental distress versus throwing the book at people. Um,
Yeah.
you know, using these Western ideologies to say, this is what you need this. Instead of pointing the finger at people, we need to be sitting down and listening and having humility. That's
Yeah.
what reimagining means to me.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's
Like
good,
that.
Allie. I definitely want to piggyback that because I think for me, what it looks like is learning how to meet people where they are.
Hmm.
I think one of the biggest things, and I can even say with my own mental health, I'll never forget having a breakdown when I was in school. I was just stressed out, just had this load on me, and I went in to see the mental health person, and she had me like diagnosed in like 5 minutes. And so of course, in true Trische fashion, I was like, ma'am, like, I'm not trying to be funny, but I've been here less than 15 minutes. You don't know me. I don't know you. Like, I don't even understand how you even had me diagnosed or thinking that you could even diagnose me or know me within 5 minutes. I was like, I honor and I respect your degrees here that you have on the wall, but until you get a degree in me, you cannot help me. And she, oh, of course, clutched her pearl. She was so offended. But in that moment, I was hoping that she would listen and understand and take away, but
Mm.
they think that somebody under them, like, how dare you? You're in school for social work. You can't tell me nothing. I might be in school for social work, but right now I'm a client. I'm
Mhm.
telling you from the perspective of a client who is having a mental health crisis and that needs something right now that you are not offering. Learn, like you said, Allie, humble yourself,
Yeah,
learn how to listen and understand that I don't care how many books you read, nothing will ever trump the experience of those who we serve.
that's right. That's right. Oh, I love it. I love it. So when you look back at, because you guys have been in mental health for some time now, um, and worked with people, you've worked with people, and people need to know that people who deliver the services for mental health require mental health too. We need counseling too. We need to be heard too. We need somebody to help us too, to help us to see the goodness that we are. Sometimes you need somebody else's eyes on you to help you remember, to help you remember who you are. So, what inspired you to focus on mental health as it relates to what we're talking about today, to the future? What made you go into that field?
And this is a loaded question. There were multiple points throughout my life uh, that one that made me know I should be going in that direction, but there were other points that reassured, yes, this is the direction you need to go. So personal and social experiences. Um, I remember I can reference back to being in high school, the experiences I had. My mom moved us from uh, where we lived in Detroit to a suburban community due to conflict in the family. She was trying to set us up for success, as she should.
Mhm.
And in that suburban community, the idea was to have a better life and be treated um, to be able to just be a kid. And what I realized was the opposite. You can't fit into something that you don't exist as. And I
Mhm.
don't exist as a white woman, and that's what I was surrounded with. So when you're a teenager in high school and that's all you're around, and you feel out of place, uh, that puts strain on your mental health because you're already an insecure teenager, constantly questioning yourself, why am I going through this? What is wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. You're perfectly fine. So was that. It was also experiences of racial profiling happening, family members seeing the way in which it mentally harmed them. And yeah, just constantly having that feeling in my belly like I need to do something, that whatever's happening here is not working. And that's what
Yeah,
keeps me going, is that feeling.
Wow,
that's good.
yeah,
That's good.
that is
That's
good.
good.
Um,
That's good.
I would say for me, I kind of like stumbled into it because I was on some like I don't never want to go to school. Like I had enough of school, and it a friend of mine just challenged me to go to the community college and just take a couple classes. And so I started taking classes around singing. I was doing singing, I was acting, and then I thought, well, I'm going to study the brain. Let me do psychology. So I took a couple psychology classes and then boom, I just kind of fell off into social work. And once I fell off into it, I seen the parallels of who I already was as a person, right? Because I had always been a servant. I had always been a fighter. I mean, I would fight for whatever. Like you ain't put ketchup on my hamburger and it's supposed to be on there. So of course I have had to learn how to taper the fight, more and more. And I'm still growing in that area. So don't push my buttons. No, I'm just playing. But I think, it's just been over time understanding the parallels of who I am, my experience, and then what I've been. I don't know if I want to say blessed or fortunate to get because it's Western education. You know what I mean? And but I have it. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm grateful that I was able to get through the institutional racism that I endured at all three institutions to get that degree. But that's another conversation, I'm sure.
That's good. That's good. And because there are, like you said, Trische, there are moments that help shape your mind, your decision to say, I'm doing this. I'm going into mental health. See, I was my mother was a um licensed certified MSW social worker. So grew up under that, you know. My father was a is a coaches and coach basketball and was always um helping people. Oh, your mom worked DHS, Trische. All right, So when you grow up, like I grew up, my mother worked at Homes for Black Children. She marched with Martin Luther King. She was um, you know, getting into good trouble at Wayne State University for all of I would actually go there because she got her master's. I was in third grade and I was on the campus at Wayne State University while she would be protesting. She would do gang um interventions she did in Detroit on Linwood, and I was there. I don't know why she did. She was, it was nothing but 5'4", 5'5", maybe. She was short, but you couldn't tell her, honey, she was ready. So I grew up with that, and so it was always around. We were always feeding somebody. Somebody was always at our house. And so as I got older, I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm not gonna be. I went fighting and kicking. Like, no, no, I'm not gonna be a social worker. I'm going to go into my own business. I had this in my mind, but then there's a moment that I made a decision. So, what was it that you encountered that said, "Okay, this is worth it. This is worth it. This is me." What purpose called you forward or experience?
Yeah, that's really good. I think, because you can be in school for something and still not embrace fully of where you're headed and what you're really trying to do. And I knew that it was social work. I kind of knew that advocacy was social work, but I really wasn't seeing a lot of social workers that was advocating, but that's a whole nother story as well. And it wasn't until I was at an institution that I won't name this time for the sake of the platform. But I was at an institution and I was met with a teacher that had done many acts of racism against students, and I had avoided her the whole time I was there. And sometimes when you are on a register for a class, the teacher's name isn't there. And 2 weeks before the class, it was her name, and I couldn't drop it. I couldn't do anything, and got in there, and her reputation was exactly what it was, and she did everything in her power, including lying, including reaching out to another school to try to block me from moving on to the master's degree. Like, this woman did everything in her power, which was corruption. And, and I almost gave up. I was a semester away from graduating. I reached out to every Department of Education, Michigan Department of, I reached out to all these institutions who all said the same thing. Like, well, are you going to graduate? Well, yeah, well, don't worry about it. And I knew right then, you can never give up on a fight. So that's why I tell people all the time, don't fight for me like you fight for me. Fight for me like you fight for yourself, because you don't give up on yourself. In that moment, I knew I couldn't give up on myself because everybody was giving up on me all around me. And so I took that spirit on and said, this is the same fight that you fight for everybody else. You never leave anybody behind if you can possibly help it.
That's good. That's good, Trisha. Because you know what? A lot of times people don't see what goes on behind those walls, and the struggle. And for you to endure anyway. And the sad thing is so many people have become so complacent about it that it's like expected. Well, I expect to be treated bad. I expect that I'm going to be mistreated. I expect when you expect discrimination, when you expect that as a process, why is it okay for us to expect that? Yeah, to be commended. I mean, because it's hard enough anyway. I remember when they were taking away affirmative action, and I was I had graduated from Michigan, and they were saying, and they were like, saying, well, that's how you graduated because of affirmative action. No, no. If you went to U of M, I'm telling, I don't know about no other place. I'm just telling you my own experience. If you graduated, you earned that. Okay. You did that. Right. You did that. You did that with your black self, with your brown self, with whatever. Whatever. You did that. And it had nothing to do with affirmative action. Now, I'm glad they had affirmative action because I was able to be in the honors program there. Would I have been able to be that without it? I'm not sure. Maybe not be in the program. Still would have graduated. But people have to know that there is a difference. So, and there's that calling you forward. Alexandria, what was the call forward that you said yes to? What was that experience that you said, yeah, I'm doing this? Oh, you're muted. I'm sorry. There you go.
Yes. Okay. I'm just talking. Okay. So, like Trische, it wasn't necessarily in school that like I just grasped this focus. I For me, it was the situation that happened. There was a student, or it's not a student, but a young girl named Grace, and in 2020, she was a 15-year-old black sophomore from Beverly Hills, Michigan, and she was incarcerated at a juvenile detention center for failing to do her homework. Uh, at that time when that happened, I was a behavior therapist, also doing community organizing with Michigan Liberation, and helped on that campaign. And seeing the what we were able to do on that campaign, and supporting the mother and Grace, and then seeing her go from being incarcerated to free, and then working as a canvasser and volunteering with Michigan Liberation at times, and then around election time, and being a part of that discussion, and um, how we could make changes in the community. Seeing that transition of like what we're able to do helped me understand the underpinnings of social work is social justice. For anything to change, social justice has to be at the forefront, and you have to continuously interrogate what social justice form you're doing to make sure you're not uh, creating the same problems over and over again, because
Right.
we're engulfed with Western society. So it's easy to do. So you have to interrogate yourself as much as possible. But it was that moment was very emotional because it's just I was just so happy for them,
That is
because
so
that's the
good.
next generation.
Good.
Grace is the next generation.
Yeah. Yeah. And because if you're in mental health at all, in any aspect or form, whether it's nurse, doctor, social worker, psychologist, psychiatrist, you have this consistent and steady education that has to happen. You have to still go to school. You still have to be made abreast of the newest modalities that are out there. You still have to be on the up and up. And You still have to test to see where you are ethically. You still have to know all of the ethical rules and standards and guidelines that we're supposed to be practicing. You are held to where you are not supposed to be biased and making biased judgments, and here we are in a society and on this platform now coming together through Michigan Coalition for Human Rights and any of the activist duties that we do. And yet we're in a field that requires you to be unbiased in a community that is extremely biased. I mean, it's just mind boggling sometimes, right? It's mind boggling. And so, I want to say, how do you today, how do you perceive the state of mental health services and awareness in our society?
Man,
What do you think? What's the current state for mental health? And what do you feel are the most pressing challenges today regarding mental health?
yeah, that's a good one right there, Reverend Tia. Because when Allie got done talking, I was thinking like the same thing that made me want to join the field was the same thing that irritated me about it. The lack of fight. I was just saying, like, did they read the code of ethics? The same one I did? Because the one that
Right.
I read talked about advocacy. It talked about, as a matter of fact, the one I read, I don't know, we might have different versions. The one I read said that if something is going on where you at and you know it's not right, it tells you first go to your shift manager, then go to his manager, and then go to the other manager. And then if that ain't right, then maybe you need to leave that place and sound the alarm, call the news, do this, do that. I mean, the code of ethics is clear on what advocacy looks like, right? And so
Yes.
I think we leave parts of the field out. And that's the irritation for me that makes me ashamed of the field in some sorts, because we think
Yeah.
it's about some cutesy job where we're sitting behind a desk making decisions for people who we don't even really give a damn about. Because if we did, we would come out of that office and really get to know the people that we study about. But we think because we studied them that we know them. And that is a
Yeah.
disgrace for those who call themselves servants. How can you serve
Yeah.
somebody you don't know? You don't know what they like. You don't know what they need. You don't know what makes them tick. You don't know anything about them other than some shit. Other than some stuff that you read. And
Yeah.
that's inappropriate because these are people's lives that we're dealing with. These are
Yes.
fragile hearts that we're dealing with. These are people that have been entrenched in trauma for 400 plus years, generational
Mhm.
trauma. And it
Yes.
is to be handled with delicacy. It is to be handled with respect. And it is to be handled acting like you know that your theory does not outweigh their experience.
That's right. That's right, Trische. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. 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 And yes. Yes. Okay, Alexandria. What are the things that are pressing you?
So, oh man, problems. Are we? So we talking about problems? 'Cause I can name a lot of them
We're
in the
talking about
mental
mental
health
health problems.
today.
I know we got a
Okay,
whole
so
list. We got a whole list.
I'll say, I think part of the issue is some of the requirements to be a licensed social worker or psychiatrist or psychologist. I believe the licensing requirements are not realistic and are outdated. And it hinders a lot of folk who have the life experience, but just don't necessarily have the economic power from being at the forefront for people. It prevents Black faces from being in high places. It prevents uh, those most impacted from seeing themselves reflected in their clinician. Another problem I feel there is uh, the behavioral health systems are linked to the carceral system, and that has to stop. And that's holding a lot of people back. That is making a lot of people complicit in harm that is happening to people. Because you got to make a living, but at the same time, this very unethical thing is happening. So, and I think that intermingling needs to stop happening. Example being Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network. Seeing as though there is someone who, a Detroit police officer, was made the CEO of that organization.
Yeah, I
That
heard
is
about
an
that.
example of
I
the
heard
linkage
about it.
between the two. Yeah, so it's just us trying to recreate the past, bring the past forward into today. That continuous wheel that keeps going and needs to stop. Uh, we need to center the person and consider generational trauma. Consider how there's current systems today that are the root of people's trauma, that are continuously causing that trauma, and we're just allowing them to continue to be linked to the mental health systems.
Yeah.
There's a lot of undoing and re-education that needs to happen, and a lot of tough conversations that need to happen, so that we can effectively heal.
I like that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's huge because I think sometimes unless you stop and take a moment and really look at the whole system. So when you were talking, I started and when Trische was talking, I started thinking about how the hospitals closed and the psychiatric hospitals closed. And a lot of the programs that were there for people who had, and this I want people to understand, who had one diagnosis. So let's say you had schizoaffective disorder, bipolar type. You could be in a program, you could have housing. It kept you off of the streets. It kept you so that you did not go into homelessness today. Because it's about, for me, it's about access, right? Who can access the help for mental health that they really require? And a lot of people who just have, because it's all in the paperwork. It's all in what they define as who needs what, who qualifies. So for some of the housing and care models require now that you have dual diagnosis. So what happened to the ones who just had one diagnosis, who were just schizophrenic or just bipolar disorder? Well, they don't get those. And where do you see those people? They're outside homeless. I'm not sure of the numbers, and I'm being very honest about that. I would like to know though what the difference is in the rate of homelessness between now and before they closed all the hospitals. Because when they closed all the hospitals, the same people who were going into the hospitals are now going into the prison. They're they're going into the county jail, and then from there they're going to prison. And they're not getting real substantial care. I'm not going to say meds because we know they get meds, but they're not getting substantial care a lot of times in the prison. And so this is very important. So as we reimagine um, mental health for today, something that's sustainable, um, in what ways do you think traditional mental health approaches fall short when it comes to sustainability? Where are we losing it at? Where have we dropped the ball?
I would say through funding. Um, when when we look at on a local level mental health services on county versus state, uh, there is not adequate funding placed locally to communities as there would be um, on the state level and county level. Now, that may not seem like a big deal to some because, hey, you have the county, but there's this issue of access. Not all services, for example, through 988 or 211, service every city in Michigan or in your entire state. There's not always going to be a response, a service that can get to you um, because of the funding that's been delegated. Not it's not been an adequate or balanced amount of funding put in every city and every county. That's not what's happening. And so locally, there needs to be more services people can access through their local government. You pay taxes there. There is interest there. There should be mental health first aid response trainings. You should be able to get free trauma informed response trainings, de escalation trainings, because we know sometimes when someone is under mental distress or has a condition, you may see that they may be agitated and it may be coming off as an attack, but no, they're not getting the care they need. So having that de-escalation training for free, trauma-informed crisis response training as well should be accessible to people and give people their power back. In addition to having local crisis response services, local services, and similar to urgent care and in and out kind of thing. Give people the tools they need and put the funding where it matters.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that. Because I mean, funding is huge. I remember back in when they first talked about releasing a lot of the people out of the hospitals, and I'm talking about these are people who had been in for long terms, severe mental health issues, but some people were there because they were orphans. See, some people were there not because they had a mental illness. They were just placed there because they weren't they had a disability, and so they put them in the hospitals back then. But there when they did first let them out, I'll never forget the amount of monies that were flooding through the state in order to help people get them out of the hospital. I mean, I was working where I would go, they were actually in the hospital. I would go and pick up my client from the hospital. She had been there for like 10, 15 years, right? She got to break out the hospital. This is the kind of monies they had, so that she could go and find a job. Then she would break out of the hospital and go to work because these people had, um, and at the time I was training out at Clinton Valley Hospital out in Pontiac. And so they would be able to leave the hospital to go look for work. Or once they got their job, they would leave the hospital to go to work. Now, mind you, the hospital was not just a hospital to a lot of these people, it was home because they had been there so long. So
Mm.
I worked with clients to get them out and take them to look for jobs. And then they get their job and they saved money. They open bank accounts. Take them to open their bank account. Then I took them to find an apartment and put the money down on an apartment. And we had such a great success rate back then. Well, why? They felt valued. They were um, people who have been long-term mental health exasperated symptoms were living successful lives. But the monies were there to make sure they could. They had, we you think about it, somebody's getting paid to pick them up, take them to look for a job, taking them back and forth to work, then taking them to get a place, and then helping them so that they can get their own transportation and get to from point A to point B. That's a lot of work for one person. And then they would make have a roommate. They had a roommate. So they weren't living in a home, group home. They were in an apartment with one other person, and they each had their own separate rooms. Now, how much was that? And do they still do that? No, no. Even though it was evidence based that to work, and it did really well, but they don't do it. They don't do it anymore. And you're right. It's a huge gap in where we allocate our monies, the funding, for our programs. If Is it important to us? Is it important to our lawmakers? And yeah. So, Trische, what are one of the? Are you still with us? We
Yes,
got
yes, I'm here. I am here. I mean,
okay.
oh my gosh. You all just said a whole lot, and I think what it kept making me think is the difference in insurances and the kind of help that you get based on that. And,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I say this with all due respect, it's just the truth. If community mental health is our only option for mental health, we're doomed. I have seen people trespass. I have seen lack of cultural competence. So when we act like people aren't taking services, we got to understand it's not just because people don't want the help.
Right. Right.
Is and what kind of help you get. I'll never forget being in a moment of distress and I went to my doctor. My doctor said, "Well, here, you need to talk to this lady." She came in, all she wanted to know was what insurance I had. And when she found out that she didn't, that she couldn't take my insurance, she was just like, "Oh, okay. What you mean? Oh, okay.
Right.
What does the code of ethics say? So you just leave somebody behind? Or could you have just talked to me off the record just to at least make sure that I was stable?"
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
This is what I'm saying. We talk
That's true.
about challenges. The challenges, to me, I feel like some are even morally.
Mm.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I work for somebody and they tell me that I cannot talk to this person because they don't have insurance, I'm finna clock out. I'm finna
Yeah.
take a break. I'm finna do what I need to do because I'm gonna help this person get to a point where they're stable because I don't want to leave them like that. We gotta
Right.
start weighing out what it looks like you said, for funding. We should have money allocated by now. There's enough unrestricted dollars that we could allocate so that folks could get the proper mental health that they need. But
Yes.
do we want to allocate that money for that or not?
That's the question. That's the question. And do the leaders, the people who are holding the purse, do they want to? Do they want to? And you can tell by actions whether they want to or not. Have they done it yet? No. No. It's no.
You know what I
Haven't they
forgot
still?
to reference here? What I forgot
What's
was
that?
down here in Washington County, we're voting on the mental health millage. Who the sheriff's
Yay.
department will reap most of that money. So here we are again with folks that are in positions of power thinking that the police have the answers to our mental health matters. And then you got people that will vote for it just because if they don't, then they're like, well, then if we don't vote for it, they won't get anything. So it's like you're
Hmm.
backed into a corner to have to support a millage that and maybe we'll have better outcomes because we'll have a different share, right? And so that is the hope. But it's just we've got to understand where we're putting our priorities. We can't put mental health as the first priority.
That's right. That's right. It is definitely a need. Because I like what you're saying, Trische, because when you talk about building mental health programs, how do we build the programs that honor diverse cultures and values and community needs? And that's what we're saying. Is the present day structure helping the community?
One of the biggest drivers of mental health, mental breakdowns is poverty, is not being able to do for self. And it seems as though, because we're not addressing those an economic need, that's leading to mental health crises. Energy has to be directed towards both, and it can't be a single ordinance for one. It has to be uh, 3 parts, 4 parts even, to address both. They aren't saying substance use and mental health issues are co-occurring for no reason. That's not for no reason. Homelessness and mental
Right.
health issues, those things happening together aren't just because they're linked for a reason. And it's time for the city funding, us to start taking a deeper look at the funding we're seeing going into city services. What is even city services? What does that include?
Yeah.
And does it even include healthcare? There was a point where many places had a healthcare department in the city, and now that's not so much the case. Not even a human services department. A lot of cities do not have, outside of Detroit, and I believe maybe one other that has something to that extent. But that's the problem. Its funds are going towards all these other things and not directly to the human needs.
Yeah. 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 That's true. That's true. I mean, they
But
always say
on
if you,
your just quickly in reply to your question about, I was going to say quickly about diversity, and to make it fully diverse and culturally inclusive, uh, having people like us at the table, people directly impacted at the table, and being able to independently review uh, without being reprimanded for your opinions, being able to be an
yes.
independent um, person to give feedback on how something is helpful or not, and a regular review of that by the community, by said communities that it serves. That's what needs to happen in order for it to be inclusive and for people to feel safe enough to voice their opinions and voice what truly is right.
Hmm. That's good. That's good. Yeah. Voice what's right. What's right. So if a person were to ask you guys today, how can I take a stand in mental health as an activist? What can I do? How can I be an advocate for people, for a vulnerable population?
I think if a person hasn't been directly impacted themselves, regardless of whether you've been directly impacted or not, you still have to listen. That's the number one thing, is listening to understand what the needs are. But you have been through it yourself, it helps to make that level of sensitivity um, just very intense, right?
Yeah.
Because you
Hmm.
understand what that feels like as opposed to fighting from the inside out. And that doesn't mean that um, you can't support from the outside in of an issue, right? It's just
Hmm.
um, finding that voice, learning how to listen to what the issue is, and then being willing to understand when there are moments to lead and understand when there are moments to be a foot soldier. And
Yes, yes.
knowing that it's very important, because I think everybody wants to lead all the time, and it's not a leader moment all the time. Sometimes it's to
Mm-mm.
humble yourself and do the work that is set before you from someone else, if that is what is
Yes,
best for the movement.
beautiful. I like that. Yes, yes, definitely, definitely. What is best for the movement? Now we do have some things coming up. I know that time goes by so fast, and I just want to say thank you guys for coming because we just had a rally not long over the weekend, rallying for wrongfully convicted. I know Allie has been out there all over rallying and as an activist. Um, and still working day to day. Trische still working day to day. I'm still working and still putting aside time to make sure people are have a voice, and even when we have to be that voice. So there's a couple of things coming up I wanted to bring to the audience attention. Want to give a shout out to J Love for thanking her. She's also on Michigan Coalition for Human Rights, and wanted to thank her because she does the podcasting for us, and that's a huge help, huge help for us. And so we do have coming up Friday, if she could put that up there, turning a moment into a movement. And there you see us here. Will be on Friday, November 1st. Already, voting matters. Yes, I have our special guest is Angela Davenport. She is the executive director of Voting Access for All Coalition, and she will be on as our special guest. Please take a look at us, watch live via Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, and click that like and subscribe button. By all means, please, please go to mchr.org and feel free to become a member. We have so many platforms that you can become a part of, whatever your niche is, whatever your voice, whatever you want to do. Like, follow, and share mchr.org. And we are on Facebook, and we are also on Instagram, I think, and YouTube now. Yes, I'm so happy. Shout out to Mara, our intern who hooked us up this year, this over the summer. Shout out to the board of directors, and I love everybody on MCHR's board. And so I just want to say, ladies, you guys are thebomb.com. One last thing before you guys go to leave. If you had to do anything different, money's not an issue. Pretend. Let's pretend. Money's not an issue. Something you want to do different right away when it comes to mental health, what would you do?
That's so funny you said money is no issue. That's an intake question that we use when we're trying to get people to reimagine stuff, right?
Yeah,
And when you remove that money part, it allows people to just dream, right? Because
yeah,
you have resources for everything you need there. Um, what I would do is start housing, the kind of housing that really helps to make folks whole, meeting people where they are, knocking on people's doors, just telling them, "Come on, leave all your stuff. We got new stuff for you. We got new everything." Just changing people's environments, because people's environments, when it comes to dealing with mental health, is just as important as dealing with mental health. And then being able to offer holistic services that will help to grow a person from the inside out and realize who they really are, because we are not our mental health crises. We're not our mental health labels that are put onto us. We are whole individuals, even if that's not what's manifesting in that moment. And so I just want to help people be able to get to full manifestation of who they are.
Right. Thank you so much. That's coming from the social justice architect, y'all. Y'all got to keep your hand on the pulse so you can hear and know the truth. Thank you so much, Trische. Alexandria, what would you do different? What would you want to do? Money's not a problem.
Right. So for me, I would make it where K through 12 schools have 24/7 mental health and conflict resolution teams in the school as throughout Michigan, all throughout the country. If money was no object, would also make it where peer respite centers were in every city, and respite centers with directly impacted people there who have gone through what they've gone through there to support them, uh, and as well as making it where there is job training, placement, and counseling services for people who um, have mental health needs and need that kind of support, and as well as for people who are formerly incarcerated, making sure they have those things to readjust to society.
Love it. Love it. Look, I always say pretend money is not an issue because it's not. I believe if we start fixing our minds on these wonderful ideas, the reimagination of mental health, it will happen. We just keep speaking it out there, keep talking about it, make it as real as it is the seat that you're sitting on. And eventually, things are going to turn around. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Alexandria Hughes, our community activist and student and researcher. Look, she's going to be a lifelong student because we all are.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Trisha, thank you. Oh my
Thank you,
goodness.
Reverend
I
Tia.
have
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm just so happy to have been able to be on with you guys tonight. And thank you, Michigan Coalition for Human Rights, our executive board and board of directors. You guys are thebomb.com, and I'm sending love, peace, and blessings to everyone tonight. Have a good evening, and see you next month into reimagining human rights. Bye bye.
I do what I can when I can while I can for my people. While the clouds roll back and the stars fill the